Everyone in that Los Angeles courtroom was left speechless when the defense attorney dropped a bombshell, alleging that Christian Combs had targeted underage guests at infamous FreakOFFS. The atmosphere instantly shifted. You could feel the tension crackle in the air. Cameras clicked furiously as Christian suddenly pushed back his chair, his face drained of color. Without a word, without a glance, he walked out. No wave, no statement, no apology. He brushed past his own legal team and vanished through the courtroom doors. It was the kind of shocking moment journalists dream of, ignited by a single explosive accusation during the hearing. That minors had attended those wild yacht parties. Christian's abrupt exit wasn't just a dramatic gesture, it was a calculated move. Because the second the attorney suggested children were involved in those performances, the story took a disturbing new turn, darker than anything previously reported.
Yeah, I ain't hear about that raid. I only heard about the LA and Miami raid. But you feel like the feds, they released that video over King Combs' comments.
Oh man, I've worked in law enforcement for 27 years, and I had the opportunity to see Hyder. It's a place, whereas they have the state, the feds, the NYPD, the Department of Corrections, and the state police. Yo, this place could be half of a basketball court. That's where they just got lines of computers with officers of all different people and officers just on the internet. Whoever's over that case, whoever's working that case, don't you know they saw that and took it to their boss?
It was a customer clue for me.
Me and my dog,
Me
and my son had it. Firstborn.
Everyone wants to be
His name is Bailey.
And it's also them.
You know.
People just
Who's your daddy?
Especially the girls.
You know.
Girls. It was embarrassing.
It's hard just to get him to call somebody. He like, it's too much work. Like, so happy birthday, Christian. Thank you everybody for coming and cheers.
So stuck.
27. 27.
It's Sunday.
It's Sunday.
We don't got no job.
We don't got no job.
And we don't got nothing to do.
And we don't got nothing to do. How do you have to do that together?
To support the allegations, the attorney introduced transcripts from audio recordings, clips reportedly captured by a producer in a makeshift studio set up aboard a yacht. In one recording, a young woman named Grace O'Marquet can be heard rejecting unwanted advances, encounters she later described as turning violent after she consumed tequila shots she believes were spiked. Grace had been hired as a steward for a yacht trip chartered by Diddy Combs in late December 2022. Expecting a quiet, family-oriented getaway where she'd serve meals and drinks, she instead found herself in the middle of a non-stop party. She described an atmosphere filled with chaos, a steady stream of suspected escorts, music blaring through the night, and drinks so dangerously strong that people were collapsing after a single sip.
Now a son of embattled music mogul Diddy Combs has been accused of sexual assault. A lawsuit filed in LA Superior Court on Thursday accuses Christian King Combs of sexually assaulting and possibly drugging a woman in December 2022. The woman says it happened while she was working on a yacht that Diddy had chartered. This comes just over a week after homes owned by Diddy were raided in LA and Miami as part of a federal human trafficking investigation. Neither the attorneys for Combs or Diddy have commented on the new legal complaint.
In a new lawsuit, Diddy Combs' second son, Christian Combs, is accused of sexually assaulting a crew member working on a super yacht. That suit was filed here in Los Angeles. Attorneys representing former yacht stewardess Grace O'Marquet say she was sexually assaulted on board a yacht when she was 25 years old in December of 2022 by Diddy's son, rapper Christian Combs. They say his dad, Sean Combs, leased the yacht and had full control of its staff and the premises. O'Marquet's lawyers say Combs turned what was sold as a wholesome family excursion into a hedonistic environment. They stated, quote, Defendant Sean Combs fostered and encouraged an environment of debauchery. There was always a party atmosphere filled with suspected sex workers, suspected laced alcohol, violence, and sheer disrespect of women and the yacht's crew. The lawsuit also contains photos of bruises that O'Markey's lawyers say she suffered when Christian Combs violently grabbed her and attempted to force her to perform a sex act. They also included a transcript of an audio recording which they say captures O'Markey being forced to consume suspected laced shots of tequila.
The carefree clip comes just days after a yacht steward filed a lawsuit against Christian, alleging he sexually assaulted her in December 2022.
The victim in the case has produced audio recordings that allegedly shows forcing himself upon her and that he wouldn't take no for an answer.
The woman says it all happened during what was supposed to be a wholesome family excursion with Christian and his father.
Check this out, y'all. This is Diddy. This is my son, King Combs.
I've been watching my pop since I was a kid.
And I'm proud of you, boy.
She says Diddy was the one chartering the yacht for the trip.
This lawsuit is bad for Diddy. He may be able to get out of it, but the optics are terrible when he's already facing a criminal investigation. This may be the nail in the coffin.
Grace alleges that Christian boarded the yacht already heavily intoxicated, pressured her into taking tequila shots, and then groped her legs, chest, and worse. According to her account, he attempted to force oral sex. She says she managed to fight him off and flee, but he later tracked her to a movie theater turned sleeping area, blocked the exit, and assaulted her again, until someone finally intervened. The emotional aftermath, as described in her complaint, was devastating. Panic attacks, suicidal thoughts, an eating disorder, and even seizures. Photos of bruises on her arm, along with audio recordings, were submitted as evidence in the court filing, in which she sued both Christian Combs and Sean Diddy Combs for sexual assault, harassment, emotional distress, and premises liability.
But focusing on Christian Combs, O'Markey says that Christian Combs had been staying at a villa on the shore, but that he would come onto the yacht in the evening to party. And on December 28, 2022, Christian reportedly arrived very intoxicated and then proceeded to pressure O'Markey to take shots of tequila. She did. Christian allegedly tried to get her to drink more in the yacht's makeshift studio. O'Markey alleges that Christian kissed her neck, kissed her face, as he groped her legs, breasts, and private areas. O'Markey reportedly told Christian, quote, "Excuse me, you don't touch my legs like that. I'll move my legs where I want to. If I want to do this, then I will. You don't touch my legs like that." O'Markey then says that she told Christian she couldn't stay with him unless it was approved by a supervisor, all of whom she knew would be asleep at the time, so this was a way for her to get out of the situation. She claims that Christian said, "Who can I talk to? I'm going to say I requested you right now." O'Markey then says she responded with, quote, "Well, you can take your hand off my ass for the first thing."
O'Markey says this is what happened next. She says she tried to go back to work, but Christian ends up finding her and wants her to find him a place to sleep for the night in the yacht. So she takes him to the cinema room of the yacht, and that is when she claims Christian stopped her from leaving, groped her, took off all of his clothes, and tried to force her to perform oral sex on him. Now, she says she was allegedly able to fight him off. Someone walks into the room, and then she was able to leave. And she said when she reported this to the captain, according to her, Captain berates her. And she alleges that the captain may have even been paid off by Sean Combs to keep quiet about what happened. And I will tell you what's really interesting about this complaint, embedded in the complaint are photographs that purport to be O'Markey's arms with bruises on them. And that is really interesting. You don't usually see that in a complaint like this. All right, so I want to bring on right now criminal defense attorney Mauricio Padilla, friend of the show. He's represented some very high-profile defendants in high-profile cases. Good to see you once again. So I don't think we've had a chance to talk about this lawsuit. And now that the news is reporting that Christian has been served with papers here, why is that significant?
Well, it's significant because anytime that they have the opportunity to continue to remind the public of the malfeasance of Diddy, of Diddy's son, of anything related to sexually inappropriate behavior, sexual assault, it helps. It helps the government continue to, lay out the narrative of how bad Diddy was, how bad Diddy's son was. So I think it's consistent with, what they've been doing, putting it out there and really destroying his character. I'm not saying that he didn't do anything to deserve it. I'm saying it's consistent with what they're doing, whether it's the government or the lawyers that are suing him.
In court, Grace's attorney, Tyrone Blackburn, didn't waste time. He laid out the disturbing details, pointing to audio recordings and alleging that drinks on the yacht had been laced with GHB and other date rape drugs. He added that additional recordings existed and would be submitted as evidence. Then came the most explosive claim, that Christian Combs and even some of his siblings had a history of participating in these so-called FreakOFFS, some of which allegedly involved minors. Later, Sean Diddy Combs' attorney Aaron Dyer fired back, dismissing the lawsuit as lewd and false. He accused Grace of fabricating the allegations and vowed to have the case thrown out, but Blackburn stood firm, insisting the events were not only real, but thoroughly documented.
To Miss Omarki, Jones taped this event with her. Yes, the lawsuit provides transcripts of audio recordings, and these audio recordings purportedly show, or you can hear, kissing sounds, her telling Combs not to touch her, her allegedly asking about whether she was drugged. Now, we haven't heard these tapes here on Law and Crime yet, but if they are what they purport to be, that is a huge piece of evidence. And remember, when we're talking a civil case, when we're talking lawsuits, the burden of proof is much lower than a criminal case. It's just preponderance of the evidence, more likely than not that this happened. So the civil suit accuses Christian of assault, battery, sexual assault, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. They're a big part of this lawsuit. She goes into the mental anguish that she has gone through, the emotional harm that she has suffered as a result of that. It's important in order to prove.
In his lengthy lawsuit, Lil Rod straight name drops Justin Combs, describing him as someone who solicits prostitutes, underage girls, and sex workers. There's actually a picture of Justin Combs with an allegedly underage girl shown in the lawsuit. Now, in this specific instance, Lil Rod alleges at least one underage girl came to Diddy's home for a listening party. A sex worker was also apparently solicited, and a freak-off ensued. As an aside, this is the same night that Lil Rod alleges Diddy forced him to take a laced shot. He started to feel lightheaded and then woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning, naked next to a sex worker. It's important to note Justin Combs is listed as a defendant on this case because, according to Lil Rod, he facilitated Diddy's alleged RICO enterprise and at times participated.
I think that if we're talking about additional charges and additional defendants, those are probably two of the more likely. And Christian, of course, was the subject of a civil lawsuit where there was a sexual assault allegation naming him directly. So I think if we're going to cast a bit of a wider net, people are talking about family members, other celebrities, maybe some employees like Christian Forum, but I think the most likely would be those two sons.
Why do you think it's the most likely about those two? Just because of the recordings, the allegations against him? What are you thinking?
I think so. I think obviously they're just civil allegations and those cases are going to be put on hold while the criminal case plays out. But, there is some smoke there. And obviously, there's a presumption of innocence and there's a lower standard in the civil case. But you have someone who's been named directly as someone who participated in a sexual assault. And everything else has been rumors and speculation. But here you at least have one verified complaint.
Prosecutors described the so-called FreakOFFS as far more than wild parties. They were organized, sexually explicit events allegedly orchestrated by Sean Diddy Combs himself. According to the Manhattan indictment, these gatherings were meticulously planned with some guests, including minors, reportedly coerced into drug-fueled acts while being secretly recorded. The lawsuit goes further, directly implicating Diddy's children. Claims they were not merely bystanders but active participants, accused of recruiting underage girls, distributing cash, preparing venues, and even assisting in filming the encounters alongside their father.
I believe it was Justin, Diddy, and G walked into the bathroom. Gunshots rang out. Lil Rod woke up so scared. Justin and Diddy left. Lil Rod went in the bathroom, saw G out all over the place, literally called the ambulance, carried him out. It was carnage and everything, put him in the ambulance. The police showed up. Lil Rod cited that in his lawsuit, and then they asked for the LAPD's report. The LAPD just released an 18-page report with no mention of any carnage or anyone that actually got shot.
There's also allegations that he actually partook in these freak-offs and potentially drugged women. This is something Lil Rod is saying. How would the feds go about proving something like that? I know that's the pattern we've seen across a lot of these civil suits, that women allege Diddy, for instance, drugged them. But now Lil Rod's also pointing the finger at Justin Combs, saying he drugged some of these women. How would the feds then go to look further into that?
Yeah, Lil Rod's lawsuit is interesting in that there are many defendants. We talked about Christina Horam, right? Some of the allegations that came out in Lil Rod's lawsuit was Christina, of course, being Combs' right-hand woman. She allegedly had the fanny pack with the drugs that were provided to the sex workers. There are the allegations directly against Justin as well. So whenever you're proving something like this, obviously, you're going to rely on the testimony of witnesses. You know, it could be an independent witness, because the sex workers, even though they're participants in a sex act, they won't necessarily be charged, or I don't think they're going to be defendants in the lawsuit, if the allegation is that they were forced to perform these sex acts and it wasn't just a commercial trend.
These charges cast an even darker shadow over Christian's case. On September 16, 2024, a Manhattan grand jury indicted Sean Diddy Combs on multiple counts, including racketeering, human trafficking, and related offenses. Prosecutors alleged that Diddy orchestrated a system of manipulation, luring women, some reportedly as young as 9, into participating in freak-offs with paid male sex workers. The drugs were allegedly used to ensure their compliance, and the encounters were filmed from start to finish. The indictment also includes charges of arson, bribery, and kidnapping. But at the heart of it all are the disturbing sex acts said to have taken place during these orchestrated events.
I was at I believe to be one of P. Diddy's freak-offs.
Now, singer-songwriter Tania Wallace told TMZ's Harvey Levin for the Tubi special, The Downfall of Diddy, Inside the Freak-Offs, she believes she witnessed underage victims at one of Diddy's 2018 parties.
I'm looking like, are those midgets? Because people were it's people over them, like it's people trying to hide what they're doing.
Adults who are little people, or are you talking about minors?
Am I gonna get in trouble? I don't want to say I witnessed any of that crazy stuff, but we all have common sense. Little people that's not supposed to be there.
You're talking about underage people.
It's a shame.
Is this woman, Tania, is she really saying that there were minors involved in these freak-offs?
That is exactly what she's saying, Billy.
Yeah, the fact, Jake, that the government in this indictment presented evidence alleging that Sean Combs was running a criminal enterprise, and they actually named it in the indictment, the Combs Enterprise. And they said that this enterprise consisted of him as the alleged leader, his employees, assistants, staff, allegedly, that were able to procure women and alleged male sex workers to engage in performances for his own sexual gratification. Where it differs from a mob indictment, it has all the elements of putting together this racketeering allegation of all these moving pieces using resources from his businesses. But the fact that this is about an allegation of sexual gratification being accomplished by alleged human trafficking, it's one of the most unique indictments I've ever seen in this area, in the area of sex crimes.
First of all, he is not steering away from the idea of the freak-offs. They seem to be saying, these were called freak-offs, we're going to call them freak-offs, but they're not illegal.
Yeah.
But one of the charges he faces is transportation to engage in prostitution. If he's saying, I hired sex workers, but if he's transporting them and paying for them, I feel like it's going to be very, very difficult to argue he's not guilty of that charge. We talked last time about how he tried to get it dismissed from the case, basically saying it's a racist charge, but it's going in.
Yeah, so Diddy just walked into the courtroom like he normally does. He hugged all of his attorneys. He, dabbed up Mark Agnifilo. I think he was kind of searching in the gallery to see if he had family there, because when court had first started, nobody was there from his family. And I think he kind of looks forward, and I'm just speculating here, obviously I'm not in his mind, but I think he looks for people, especially his mom, to be inside that courtroom in the gallery. But today it was just Justin Combs all by himself. I think in the moment when he had first walked into the courtroom, it was a little bit after it had started, he kind of was like clearing his throat. I don't know if it was because he actually had to clear his throat or if it was to get his father's attention, just to let him know that he is here.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, but Diddy did turn around a couple of times. I don't know if it was to see if more of his family came in or to see, just to kind of like check in with Justin during that. But he seems to always kind of be more excited to see his family inside that court.
In March 2025, Homeland Security agents launched coordinated raids on Sean Diddy Combs' properties in Los Angeles, Miami, and New York. Agents seized electronics, firearms, party records, and a large quantity of personal lubricants. Christian Combs was briefly detained for questioning during the operation. He was handcuffed at his father's Los Angeles home but ultimately released without any charges filed. Diddy's legal team condemned the raids as a calculated ambush, insisting that both father and son would vigorously defend themselves against what they called baseless accusations. Still, the optics were undeniable. A music mogul under federal indictment, and his son entangled in a graphic, high-profile civil lawsuit.
The father of 7 also broke his silence on social media, posting these photos of his 17-month-old daughter with the caption, quote, "Happy Easter from baby love." Diddy's 26-year-old son, Christian, who was handcuffed and questioned during the LA raid, also posted for the first time. He says, quote, "Stop with the caps," which is slang for lies.
There's a whole public relations side of this. Diddy is going to want to put up a front of an innocent person. And sometimes the best defense is a good offense. Right now, investigators are going through the evidence that they see. What they're really looking for are videos of the alleged sexual abuse. If prosecutors have that information, we're talking about days or weeks before Diddy is charged. He may go to prison for the rest of his life.
Inside the home, federal agents can be seen using a drone. Then the video shows Diddy's son Christian with his hands in the air, pressed against the wall, then handcuffed. Diddy's son Justin then appears with his hands on his head. The agents then appear to take him down a hallway. The release clip ends with what appears to be another man who is dragged out of the home and on the driveway by agents. Photos of the aftermath show Diddy's sons Christian and Justin on the lawn of the LA home while agents seemingly continued their search. Justin Combs' mom released a statement along with the video slamming the federal agents for the way they handled the raid. The statement reads, quote, "The overzealous and overtly militarized force used against my sons Justin and Christian is deplorable. If these were the sons of a non-black celebrity, they would have not been handled with the same aggression. The attempt to humiliate and terrorize these innocent young black men is despicable."
I'm not surprised she posted it. She has to, they have to control the narrative. And do their best to control the narrative, and frankly, that's her right. If she has that data, that to do what she wants. I don't think it helped the situation. I don't think it helped her son or Sean Diddy. I think it may have just you still have human beings you're dealing with on both sides of the table, and basically kind of amping this up. I don't think that solves anything for anybody. Also, it's a matter of, is the public going to be sympathetic to a billionaire and his problems and his issues? This isn't something that happened, in an unfortunate instance in a lower socioeconomic area of Los Angeles or New York or Cleveland. This is in Hollywood with a $50 million mansion with luxury cars out front. And dealing with a billionaire, and then they had another one in Miami. I don't think the American people or the public are like having a whole lot of sympathy